Good evening. We have what I expect will be the final installment of our study of the Karma Yoga. After we went through the whole book of Karma Yoga, we turned to Swamiji's class talk called Work and Its Secret, and we should finish that today. So let's start with our prayer. Om Sahana Bhavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Saha Viryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavadhitam Astu Ma Vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. May we be protected together. May we be nourished together. May we acquire strength together. May what we learn shine forth in our lives. May we not find fault with one another. Om, peace, peace, peace. So, we are taking up Work and Its Secret, the last portion. This was a talk given at Payne's Hall in Los Angeles, somewhere in downtown Los Angeles. It is no longer in existence. It was given on the 4th January 1900 at 10 in the morning. And let's see, did I find anything? This was a Thursday morning. It rained the night before, so everything was fresh and clear and clean, but except some of the streets would have been quite muddy because all the streets were not paved and there were horse carriages and all that, so it would have been a little messy too. But Swamiji came on the 3rd of December, 1899 to Los Angeles, and so he would have been here just 1 month when he gave this talk. And interestingly, actually the talk was titled, What Brings Success? What Brings Success? It's been retitled Work and Its Secret, presumably by the compilers of the complete works of Swami Vivekananda. And we can review briefly the first part of the talk, and actually why it fits in with Karma Yoga. The first paragraph says it all, and in some ways after that he goes into a lot of different areas which maybe don't fall so strictly in the area of Karma Yoga, in the theme of Karma Yoga. But this is, and let me read again that first sentence, one of the greatest lessons I have learned in my life is to pay as much attention to the means of work as to its end. And he mentions how he learned this from a great soul, actually from Pavari Baba, the saint, the so-called air-eating saint of Gazipur in UP, or is it in Bihar? I forget. Gazipur, I think Bihar probably, or UP, and Uttar Pradesh, and this problem that we have when we take up some work, that we get completely fixated on the goal, and that becomes the important thing. It's difficult to turn our karma into yoga if we're only thinking about the goal. I want this, I want this. If I'm thinking about producing a good meal and I'm imagining, oh, the meal has got to be really good, and I'm constantly thinking of it, then how can I do my cooking as an offering? How can I stay detached from the work I'm doing? I'm going to be totally thinking about how good the meal has to taste, and if it doesn't taste good, if it's not delicious as I thought it would be, I'm going to be disappointed. I'm going to bring suffering on myself, and at the same time, I'm not going to be able to give my whole mind to the cooking. I'm going to be constantly thinking of that. Whereas, as we know, we who cook in our monastery kitchen, we find what a joy it can be when we focus on the means. Do you have a question?
Yes.
Go ahead.
So if you're totally focused on just making it and you're not thinking about the future, but I mean, this is my experience, is that I get lost in doing it, and I don't think of God, and I don't think of the guru, or I don't think of anything. I'm just kind of doing it, and then later, I mean,
like an automaton or something.
I guess so. So, I mean, is that yoga, or is that?
Well, that sounds like unconscious work. We have to go. Well, one thing that's very great help, especially when cooking, is japa, because we can repeat the mantra while cooking. It's a beautiful practice. We're not doing, repeating the mantra for advanced seekers. They can do it while tallying tables of figures when they're trying to balance the monastery accounts. It may be possible. But for beginners in spiritual life like us, that becomes very difficult to do japa while doing intellectual kind of work. But while we're doing physical work, chopping vegetables, stirring pots, we can keep our minds on the Lord. One of the cooks who comes here, he puts on some spiritual music, some bhajans, and he's listening to bhajans while doing it. So paying attention to the means. See, the idea is that the end is contained within the means. So we will attain, if we want, in karma yoga, of course, our idea is to relinquish all attachment to the results. But at the same time, if we want to have a successful work, we have to pay attention to the means, because the means determine the end. Some people say that the end justifies the means. That would not be the attitude here. Here, the means determine the end. So if we want a holy end, we have to have holy means. And he says, whenever failure comes, if we analyze it critically, in 99% of cases we shall find that it was because we did not pay attention to the means. So if we take care of the cause, the effect will take care of itself. The realization of the ideal is the effect. The means are the cause. Attention to the means, therefore, is the great secret of life. So that's wonderful. So then he goes on. I love that, and I think it informs how I try to do things. Pay attention to the means. Do things with concentration. And yet, the next paragraph he reminds us, at the same time, cultivate that detachment. And then much of the rest of the talk is going to be about the importance of detachment at the same time, so. That is the whole secret of existence, he says, this detachment. The bee came to sip the honey, but its feet stuck to the honey pot, and it could not get away. So don't be caught by our work. Don't be caught. Reserve unto yourself the power of detaching yourself from everything. However much the soul might yearn for it, however great the pangs of misery you feel if you were going to leave it, still reserve the power of leaving it whenever you want. Our first class ended there. This idea that we get so attached to something that we can't let it go, and we get caught, and we suffer, and we just can't let it go. Then he goes on to talk about the importance of strength, that it is weakness is death, strength is life. And then he says we need detachment, but we also need attachment. How are you going to work if you can't focus your whole mind on it, if you can't throw yourself into it? So he says there must be as much power of attachment as that of detachment. Both attachment and detachment. It's actually the same power, right? We focus it on something, or we take it off and focus it back inside. So this is beautiful. So then they had this beautiful passages of just be a giver. Don't be a beggar. We are all beggars. Whatever we do, we want something in return, no matter what we do. We are traders in life. We are traders in virtue. We are traders in religion. And alas, we are also traders in love. If you come to trade, it is a question of give and take. It is a question of buy and sell. Abide by the laws of buying and selling. So we get caught not by what we give, but what we expect. So then he has this beautiful passage. Just be a giver. What you have got to give to the world, give that. And don't seek for any return. And then the paradox is the return does come. The return does come in multiplied 1,000-fold. Ask nothing. Want nothing in return. Give what you have to give. It will come back to you 1,000-fold. But the attention must not be on that. Yet have the power to give. Give, and there it ends. Learn that the whole of life is giving, that nature will force you to give. So give willingly. So beautiful. And then the last paragraph of the second class that we had. The more you give, the more will come to you. The quicker you can empty the air out of this room, the quicker it will be filled up by the external air. And if you close all the doors and every aperture, that which is within will remain. But that which is outside will never come in. And that which is within will stagnate, degenerate, and become poisoned. A river is continually emptying itself into the ocean and is continually filling up again. Bar not the exit into the ocean. The moment you do that, death seizes you. Like I think I mentioned that last time, the musical Hello, Dolly. Is that the name of the musical? Where the one of the lines is, money is like manure. It doesn't do any good unless you spread it around. If you pile it all up in one place, it stinks. But if you spread it around on the fields, you get a rich harvest. So like that, don't try to hold, give, and more will come. As Peace Pilgrim says, we are called to live up to the highest light that we have. And when we do that, more light will come. But if we don't do that, if we know but don't do, then more light will not come. So now we come again. Again, he's going to talk about this attachment and how difficult it is to be detached. Extremely difficult. So he acknowledges it's difficult, and yet he says, keep trying, practice, practice, practice. Be therefore not a beggar. Be unattached. This is the most terrible task of life. You do not calculate the dangers on the path. Even by intellectually recognizing the difficulties, we really do not know them until we feel them. How difficult it is, this non-attachment. From a distance, we may get a general view of a park. Well, what of that? We feel and really know it when we are in it. So, I think, or let's see a little more. What is he talking about? I think we won't really understand how difficult it is to practice detachment until we actually do it. We feel and really know it when we are in it. Even if our every attempt is a failure and we bleed and are torn asunder, yet through all this, we have to preserve our heart. We must assert our godhood in the midst of all these difficulties. How beautiful. In the midst of all the difficulties, we must assert our godhood. That I am divine. Let eyes grow dim and heart grow faint. And how does it go? Let eyes grow dim and heart grow faint, and friendship fail and love betray. Darn it. Clotted darkness block the way. All nature wear one angry frown to crush you out. Still, know, my soul, you are divine. That's from Swamiji's poem to Mary Hale, the Song of the Free. So, we must assert our godhood in the midst of all these difficulties. Nature wants us to react, to return blow for blow, cheating for cheating, lie for lie, to hit back with all our might. Then it requires a super divine power not to hit back, to keep control, to be unattached. So he brings in this idea of super divine, and he talks about this at some length. He says, not that we superhuman strength is not enough. We need super divine power to attain this kind of detachment, that even in the midst of all the difficulties we can say, I am divine. Assert our godhood in the midst of all these difficulties. So this is the most terrible task of life. It's difficult, but don't be a beggar. Don't be a beggar. Don't always seek return, rather give. Even if every attempt is a failure, we have to preserve our heart. We keep giving. We assert our godhood in the midst of all the difficulties. And true, our nature is, you hit me, I want to hit you back. That's what we want to do. Maybe with a fist, or maybe in other ways. I spread bad stories about you to other people, and people start talking up. Gradually it comes back to us. We feel hurt. Oh, is it? So, every day we renew our determination to be unattached. We cast our eyes back and look at the past objects of our love and attachment and feel how every one of them made us miserable. We went down into the depths of despondency because of our quote-unquote love. Well, this is pretty severe. What do you think? Is it true? I can think back to, say, what just came to my mind was the family dog when we were growing up. And I loved that dog. I think I loved that dog. The dog certainly seemed to love me. And she was such a sweet golden retriever. And I don't see how that made me miserable. I can think back to it, and I think back to it with some joy that yes, that was an expression of pure love there. How did it make me miserable? We cast our eyes back and look at the past objects of our love and attachment and feel how every one of them made us miserable. We went down into the depths of despondency because of our quote-unquote love. So,
talking about in the moment, though, so probably talking about like the suffering at like loss.
I think if you have the microphone, then everyone can hear you. But yes, when the dog died, of course, we were sad.
Right. That's what I was going to say too.
And but I don't remember having a lot of suffering. But my mom had a lot of suffering when the dog died. Absolutely, because she was that was her companion at the time. I mean, aside from her, my dad. But when we expect, I mean, we can probably think of some human relationship that we had, that we were deeply attached into it, and yet we also got a lot of suffering from it. And why? Because we expected. We had all kinds of expectations. And the other person probably also had expectations of us. And so we think back and think, oh my God, what difficulty. We found ourselves mere slaves in the hands of others. We were dragged down and down. And we make a fresh determination. Henceforth, I will be master of myself. Henceforth, I will have control over myself. But the time comes, and the same story once more. Again, the soul is caught and cannot get out. The bird is in a net, struggling and fluttering. This is our life. So that's why we need this super divine strength. I think in spiritual life it can be helpful sometimes to reflect on the misery of life, that life is really difficult, and that can spur our determination to make progress, to taste a little bit of the freedom of. I just thought of a nice example. I was just out of high school. And I had a job, a really hard job, doing construction, just as basic labor, but learning construction, and it was just we were remodeling someone's basement. It was hard work, and I was learning a lot, of course. But so anyhow, I was making very little money. It was like $4 an hour or something. Of course, that was back then. And so saving it up, and in the meantime, there was this refugee from Ethiopia who somehow had just gotten off like a castaway on a ship, and had gotten here it was in the city where I was, and was trying to somehow get established. And he was a cook, and so he was trying to get a job as a cook, and he somehow through my school, the high school, still I had some friends at high school. He showed up at the high school, and I came down. Some friends of mine said, "Oh, this guy, he needs some help." I came down, and so he ended up. He was hungry. Also, he was way underfed. So we brought him to our home, and we fed him. And then I gave him some money. He came up to my room. I took out. I had money hidden in a book, and I took out the money, and I gave him some money, and then wished him well, and then next day I wasn't there, and I heard that he came back to the house and said that he'd left something in the house, and talked his way into the house, and he went up to my room, and he opened the book, and he took all the money that was there. Okay. And $4 an hour, it increases really slowly. And so I don't know how many, probably a few $100s were there. And I came home and I found out about it. I was so mad. It was like, that guy, I gave him money, and then he came back and he cheated, he stole it. And I called the place because I knew where he was staying. I called and I tried to get him on the phone, but they wouldn't take the call and everything. And I was steaming. And then somehow I started listening to I turned on some music, some of my favorite music. I was listening to that, and somehow I got this feeling like, okay, let it go. It's okay, let it go. Just let it go. And that was wonderful, because I realized then that by being attached to this money and feelings like this guy has wronged me, all that, I was suffering. Really suffering, just to let it go. And when I was able to a certain extent at least, let it go, this tremendous peace. I felt this tremendous peace, like, oh, I can just let it go. Okay, no big deal. Just, all right. Whatever it may be. Okay, it's okay. He's suffering. I don't need the money, all that. I don't need the money like he needs the money. Okay, let him have, Somehow I was able to let it go. So that is how attachment brings suffering, and detachment brings peace. It's interesting, I hadn't remembered that for a long time. Poor guy, I wonder what happened to him. He was going to go to, I think he was enrolled in a school for training restaurant cooks or something, and so he could get trained. And anyhow, it was weird because it was, anyhow, let's not get into that. the weird thing is that there was also this guy from the CIA who was after him. He wanted to get him, I guess, as a spy or something. I mean, it was really weird. And I saw the guy from the CIA, a guy in a suit in a nice car who came and met him also. It was weird. Okay, so God bless him. He taught me something about detachment. I know the difficulties. Tremendous they are. And 90% of us become discouraged and lose heart. And in our turn often become pessimists and cease to believe in sincerity, love, and all that is grand and noble. So we find people who, in the freshness of their lives, have been forgiving, kind, simple, and guileless, become in old age lying masks of men. Oof. Harsh. Their minds are a mass of intricacy. There may be a good deal of external polish, possibly. They are not hot-headed. They do not speak. But it would be better for them to do so. Their hearts are dead, and therefore they do not speak. They do not curse nor become angry, but it would be better for them to be able to be angry 1,000 times better, to be able to curse. They cannot. There is death in the heart. For cold hands have seized upon it, and it can no more act, even to utter a curse, even to use a harsh word. Goodness gracious. I'm thinking, I think we are fortunate as we are in this community to be like that we have people, I mean, spiritual seekers are not like this. This is like worldly people at the end of their lives. I guess sometimes they become very pessimistic, no? And just give up. Their hearts have shriveled up. We are so fortunate that our hearts are still beating. Our heart of love, our heart of sincerity, in spite of everything. Swamiji says, no? Don't become like this. Don't become pessimists. Don't cease to believe in sincerity. Don't cease to believe in love and all that is grand and noble. So Swamiji himself almost faced that, no? When life dealt him such a series of blows. His father died, plunging the family into severe poverty. And then family members took the opportunity to seize the ancestral property. So they were getting pushed out of their rightful home. And lying masks of men, those kind of people. So what a struggle. So he went through a period when he almost lost faith. That how can there be a God? How could God allow this? Huh? Yes, it happens. How could God allow this? Tell me about. So, and then the story is told. He was looking for a job, and he couldn't get a job. Going barefoot, office to office, seeking for a clerk's job or something, and not getting anything. And he collapsed, exhausted, on the veranda of a house. And so dozed off, and a gentle rain started falling. And he awoke refreshed, and somehow within something had opened, something had shifted. And what exactly we don't know, but he was able to reconcile the tremendous suffering of life with the infinite grace of the divine. And we know later how he went to Sri Ramakrishna and forced his demand on him. You have to talk to Divine Mother to solve my misery, solve my family's poverty. And he said, you go do it. You talk to her. Tonight is the holy night. You know the story. It's such an inspiring story how Sri Ramakrishna sent him to the temple. And when he entered the presence of the Divine Mother, he saw the living mother, and he couldn't ask her for money. He completely forgot about that, and he could only ask her for devotion and renunciation and illumination and all of that. 3 times. First 2 times he completely forgot. The 3rd time he remembered and felt totally ashamed. I'm coming to Mother to ask for money? How can I do that? Afterwards, of course, he pressed Sri Ramakrishna so hard that Sri Ramakrishna finally agreed, all right, they won't suffer from want of at least simple food and clothing. So, and they didn't starve after that. So, But that's no doubt a challenge. But he passed through it, and so he's also telling us here, all this we have to avoid. Therefore, I say, we require super divine power. Superhuman power is not strong enough. Super divine strength is the only way, the one way out. By it alone can we pass through all these intricacies, through these showers of miseries, unscathed. We may be cut to pieces, torn asunder, yet our hearts must grow nobler and nobler all the time. Okay, not only must we pass through it, but even our hearts have to keep growing nobler. Our hearts have to keep expanding. Yes, in spiritual life, let Swamiji says, let misery come, let death come. Difficult. How do we do it? By practice, practice, practice. Now I remember the line, I think. Let heart grow faint and eyes grow dim, and friendship fail and love betray. Let fate its 100 horrors send, and clotted darkness block the way. All nature wear one angry frown to crush you out. Still, know, my soul, you are divine. March on and on, nor right nor left, but to the goal. Nor angel eye, nor man, nor brute, nor body mind, nor he, nor she. The books do stop in wonder mute to tell my nature. I am he. That's the wonderful poem he wrote to Mary Hale. So that's what we're called to do, to remind ourselves, even in the face of the clotted darkness blocking the way and everything, I am divine. So that's a beautiful line there. We must remind ourselves of our godhood. So it is very difficult, but we can overcome the difficulty by constant practice. This is the same teaching of the Gita, same teaching of Patanjali. Abhyasa yoga, the yoga of practice, practice, practice. We must learn that nothing can happen to us unless we make ourselves susceptible to it. Now we're getting into a little bit of delicate area. This is an attitude I think we can take, and this attitude of taking responsibility. And let's read a little further, then you'll see why it's a little bit of a delicate area. We must learn that nothing can happen to us unless we make ourselves susceptible to it. I have just said, no disease can come to me until the body is ready. I guess the person who's taking these notes didn't get everything down because we don't see it mentioned before, but apparently he had said it already. No disease can come to me until the body is ready. It does not depend alone on the germs, but upon a certain predisposition which is already in the body. All right, that I think true. If you expose 20 people to a virus, some of them will get sick, maybe many of them will get sick, but not all of them will get sick. Why? So we can accept that at least to a certain extent, we can accept that statement. We only get that for which we are fitted. Let us give up our pride and understand this, that never is misery undeserved. There has never been a blow undeserved. There never has been an evil for which I did not pave the way with my own hands. We ought to know that. Analyze yourselves, and you will find that every blow you have received came to you because you prepared yourselves for it. You did half, and the external world did the other half. That is how the blow came. That will sober us down. Okay, this is a delicate area because, as Preeti was saying, it's really been co-opted by the New Agers who say, if you have suffering, it's your own fault. Look at the. I think this is an attitude to take that may be helpful for some people in spiritual life. And here, Swamiji mentions specifically, let us give up our pride. And if we, I think it requires, first of all, someone who has had a solid foundation, has a healthy, mature ego, and then is facing some suffering. It doesn't. You can't tell the people of Ukraine right now, you paved the way for this. You can't tell them that. And I don't know that I can believe that they paved that all the people of Ukraine who are suffering right now, or the people of Gaza who are suffering right now. Can you say, "Oh, you paved the way for that"? No. This is an attitude to take for spiritual seekers who have progressed a significant way along the path. This is an attitude, and it's always something we can apply only to ourselves. It's not something we can apply. Oh, you're suffering. It's your fault. Oh, you have cancer. It's your fault. Oh, you were beaten by a mugger. It's your fault. You paved the way for that. Victim blaming, victim shaming. It's terrible. It happens. People do that. Even people who think they're spiritual. No, it's everything we do is our own fault. No. So this is only to be applied in the case of this ourselves. We can apply it to ourselves. It's a selective application of the law of karma. This is the idea of the law of karma. Yes.
Do you think it is true that we do pave, even the people in Ukraine and Gaza and all that? Don't you think that it is true? It's just that you can't tell them that because that's not helpful for them.
Yeah.
Well, it depends if you take that's a very strongly deterministic view of karma, that everything is determined only by karma. And I think Buddhists especially take this view that yes, everything is karma. But we have this, we get into a very deep philosophical conundrum, and that is called the problem of evil. It's called the problem of evil. And strict karma is one way of addressing that. But because we have the idea of God, and because the mystics, and even we, I think, most of us who are here, who come to this temple, we intuit that the divine reality, that God, that the Divine Mother, is infinitely loving and infinitely merciful. How then do you explain if our Divine Mother is infinitely merciful and infinitely compassionate? And infinitely powerful, how do you explain Ukraine or Gaza? How do you explain so much wickedness in this world? How do you explain that there's so much evil and so much suffering? How do you explain it? And so you can't actually explain it, but philosophically people take different approaches. And the Shankara takes the approach of strictly it's karma. God has set up the law of karma, and it just works itself out. That's the law of karma. So that's it. You did it in your past life, and you don't remember it. Ramanuja adds the idea of lila, and Sri Ramakrishna often talks about lila. What does Sri Ramakrishna say? He has several ways he addresses this question. Why is there so much misery? He does seem to accept the law of karma. He accepts that, yes, we have to accept samskaras, tendencies inherited from previous births, as well as the fact of results of karma. And Holy Mother also definitely accepts it. But both Sri Ramakrishna and Holy Mother say, if we take complete refuge in the divine, those results that are attenuated. Holy Mother gives the example often quoted of, say you were destined by your karma to have a wound the size of a plowshare, a giant wound. At least you'll have to get a pinprick. But by doing japa, by doing spiritual practice, you can reduce it. Sri Ramakrishna also, so oftentimes what he says is, we can't understand. We can't understand God's ways. Why? Why there is so much suffering? It's impossible to understand it with our limited mind, with our limited intellects. And so that's one approach he takes, and you have an objection.
No, not an objection, just a another thing that I think is that suffering is to awaken us, to wake us up, and it helps wake us up. And so that some suffering, I'm not saying Ukraine necessarily, but that things happen, not that we did wrong things and we're getting bad karma back, but that just we're still unconscious. And so this helps us to have a new perspective or to dive deeper. And
True. Yes, that's suffering can be very useful. Probably none of us would be on the spiritual path, or very few people who would be intense seekers, if they hadn't had any suffering in life. If everything is hunky-dory, why do you need God? Everything is fine. I'm happy. I have my... but some kind of malaise always comes. Some kind of malaise, some kind of dissatisfaction with life always comes. And sometimes it becomes very intense. Sometimes it seems to become too intense. Some people suffer too much.
Swami, I'm thinking of Swami, I'm thinking of the audience of who he was speaking to, and trying
Swami Vivekananda.
Yes, and trying to think of within what context was he sharing these words with them, and what was he trying to? Because the conversation, we're going down a different path, but I wonder what he was trying to help relay and stir in them.
True, that's a nice point. Let's imagine what it would have been Angelinos of 1900, and who goes to a lecture? Okay, would have been the educated people who mostly they're educated, they're probably fairly well-to-do, because there may have been some charge for the lectures. Typically there would have been a charge to get in. Like going to a movie, you pay your ticket, there would have been a charge.
Luckily it's free.
And he's talking about, and remember that the title of the talk was the what brings success. And well, he's going to give, the next paragraph will give the positive side of it. But just to finish that idea, that Sri Ramakrishna also brings in the idea of Leela, that it's the Divine Mother's play. And then Swami Turiyananda objects, but her play is our death. And then he says, yes, but let me ask you, who are you? So from that highest standpoint of Vijnana Vedanta, everything is mother. So it's also mother who's suffering. But there's another interesting tack that he also takes, which is why are there wicked people in the world? To create saints. So that is a little bit also your idea of awakening. Why are there wicked people? To create saints. If we didn't have to practice forbearance, then no one would become a saint. All right, let's see this idea, I can't understand and I don't want to understand. All I need is love for you, Mother. For the real devotees, this is a nice approach. For the hardcore devotees, Mother, I don't understand and I can't and I don't need to understand, Mother. All I want is love for you. That's a nice solution. Then there's the idea, oh, well, Mother, it's all your play. I can't understand it, but it's your play. And sometimes we have to apply the chapter 2 of the Gita, it's just bodies that die. When you see the terrible, and actually it's not the deaths that are so difficult as the suffering. If people are wiped out in a big bomb blast, that's, instant death, that's not so bad. The soul doesn't die. But the suffering, the incredible pain and suffering is difficult. Anyhow, we're getting distracted here. At the same time, from this very analysis will come a note of hope. And the note of hope is, I have no control of the external world, but that which is in me and nearer unto me, my own world, is in my control. If the two together are required to make a failure, if the two together are necessary to give me a blow, I will not contribute the one which is in my keeping. And how then can the blow come? If I get real control of myself, the blow will never come. And then he's going to expand that. It actually is beautiful. We can't control the external world, but we can control at least we're striving to learn how to control our response to our experience in the world. We are all the time from our childhood trying to lay the blame upon something outside ourselves. We are always standing up to set right other people and not ourselves. This is true. I mean, look at the current political discourse, on the political level, the different politicians. What are they doing? It's your fault. You should elect me. It's that guy's fault. Everything is because of him. And interestingly, we had a little meeting with one of our financial advisors for the Vedanta Society. And somehow a question came up, what about the election and will it hurt the economy? And he pointed out that actually the economy pretty much does okay after every election. And he showed a fascinating graph. And the graph was the opinion of people of how well the economy is doing. And it was separated into Republicans and Democrats, and it showed who's president. Okay? When there's a Republican president, the majority of Republicans think the economy is doing really good, and the majority of Democrats think it's not doing good. As soon as the election changes and a Democrat comes into power, it switches, and the Republicans think the economy is doing bad, and the Democrats think it's doing good. It's the same economy. It's more or less limping along in its usual way, growing and going better and worse and better and worse. But the graph shows clearly, depending on who's president, the people of that party think it's either doing good or not good. So always blaming the others, no? My guy is doing it good, they're doing it bad. So very interesting graph. We are always trying to lay the blame upon something outside ourselves. We are always standing up to set right other people and not ourselves. If we are miserable, we say, "Oh, the world is a devil's world." We curse others and say, "What infatuated fools." But why should we be in such a world if we really are so good? If this is a devil's world, we must be devils also. I love Swamiji. Why else should we be here? Swamiji like this. If you say it's a devil's world, yes, if this is a devil's world, we must be devils also. Why else should we be here? Really, really brilliant. Oh, the people of the world are so selfish. True enough. But why should we be found in that company if we be better? Just think of that. We only get what we deserve. It is a lie when we say the world is bad and we are good. It can never be so. It is a terrible lie we tell ourselves. Okay, the reason he's doing this is specifically to not to justify suffering, now I see it. It's not to justify suffering, not to explain away our misery. No, it's if we can really accept this, then we stop blaming others. And we take responsibility for our lives. This is the first lesson to learn. Be determined not to curse anything outside, not to lay the blame upon anyone outside, but be a man or a woman. Stand up. Lay the blame on yourself. You will find that is always true. Get a hold of yourself. We have to finish today. I don't want to drag it on to another class. So the idea is that on the one hand, we continually assert our godhood, as he mentioned earlier, and on the other hand, don't blame. Rather, turn back always within. And The wonderful thing I always feel about the law of karma is that it puts our future in our own hands. If, yes, all right, I'm suffering, but it's not so much, karma is not so much what I did in the past that affects me now. Karma is what I do now. And that's actually where this lecture started. Pay as much attention to the means as to the end. It's the means which determine the end. The means which determine the end in work, and the means which determine the end in life also. As we, are we going to live a spiritual life? Then don't curse. Then don't return a blow for a blow. And see how our character transforms. See how our divinity blossoms and manifests more and more. Is it not a shame that at one moment we talk so much of our manhood, of our being gods, that we know everything, we can do everything, we are blameless, spotless, the most unselfish people in the world? And at the next moment, a little stone hurts us, a little anger from a little jack wounds us. Any fool in the street makes these gods, quote unquote, miserable. Should this be so if we are such gods? Is it true that the world is to blame? Could God, who is the purest and noblest of souls, be made miserable by any of our tricks? If you are so unselfish, you are like God. What world can hurt you? You would go through the seventh hell unscathed, untouched. But the very fact that you complain and want to lay the blame upon the external world shows that you feel the external world. The very fact that you feel shows that you are not what you claim to be. You only make your offense greater by heaping misery upon misery, by imagining that the external world is hurting you and crying out, "Oh, this devil's world, this man hurts me, that man hurts me," and so forth. It is adding lies to misery. So, yeah, it's a little bit harsh. And, you know, sometimes people do get, I mean, you can't tell this to people who are being traumatized. You know, it doesn't apply, I think, in their case. In that case, we have to heal, you know, stop the oppression, heal the soul, heal the person who is suffering. But for those of us who are prideful, like Angelenos, Californians, you know, it was still kind of a frontier town in Los Angeles. It was, and there was the gold rush, and there was the Americans who were here at that time, immigrants, many of them immigrants, or you know, some of them maybe many generations in California, but mostly not. It was mostly new people. So there was a certain spirit of, I can do everything. And that's a kind of, you know, a young country. Americans have that spirit of, I can do everything. I can do it myself. I found that in India sometimes, that you know, the ancient culture, and all right, let it go. You know, there's a problem. All right, just surrender and let it go. And my American friends, well, no, we can fix that. We can fix a lot of stuff. We should fix this thing. And they were like, oh, we good. Yeah, we could. If we did that, we could fix it. They would appreciate it also. Oh, we can fix that. But like the temple doors at Belur Mutt, there are these beautiful carved wooden doors, and around the inner sanctum, and they're closed, of course, several times a day. They're closed and opened, and there was also a donation box right by the window, right by the door, and it was chained to the grill. Okay, now the chain was put in such a way that it was touching the door, and the door was getting damaged, and so there's damage. And I pointed out, hey, you know, if you move that chain, it won't damage the door like that. And they were like, oh, that's a good point. Hey, this guy is smart. Look at that. And you know, for us, it's like, duh, don't put the chain where it's going to hit the door. But they're seeing the door. They're not doing anything. So Americans have that, I can do it. We'll do it. We'll fix everything. We'll fix everything. No? And so for those people, he's saying, see, you think you're gods and you can fix everything, but now there's one person gives you an insult and you're miserable. Somebody says a nasty comment, you become miserable. And you think you're God, and you think you can do everything, and you can think you can fix everything. Be a little humble. Turn within. I think the idea is it's adding lies to misery. This man hurts me, that man hurts me. Actually, I cannot be hurt. If I'm really going to do it, if I'm really going to affirm my godhood, then what can touch me? This world, if this world is a devil's world, then I'm also a devil. Swamiji says, of course, the wicked see this world as a perfect hell, and the good see it as a perfect heaven. There's also that. So, for last two sentences, 3 sentences, 4 sentences. We are to take care of ourselves. That much we can do. And give up attending to others for a time. Interesting. So he's really poking people, turn within, go forward in spiritual life. Let us perfect the means. The end will take care of itself. For the world can be good and pure only if our lives are good and pure. It is an effect, and we are the means. Therefore, let us purify ourselves. Let us make ourselves perfect. That's the end of the talk. A beautiful way of closing it, that yes, we want this world to be perfect. We want to see holiness everywhere. We want people not to be selfish. We want people to stop inflicting suffering on others. Is it going to happen? Not by wanting it, not through external means. It's going to happen. The more people, the more we turn within, the more we become truly unselfish, the more we become forgiving, the more we become spiritual, the more we learn to love without expecting anything in return, the more we see that, the more this world will be made good and pure. It reminds me that I don't know if it's true. I mean, I haven't examined the results of the studies, but the Maharishi University in Iowa, they conducted some studies that if the number of people meditating in a city gets higher, the crime rate goes down. And I love that. It's a wonderful idea. I don't know how robust those studies are. It sounds a little hokey to me that, but then, so it's a wonderful idea. They did the studies and came up with these results. So that would be wonderful. There's a footnote here that as the Swami knew, this last sentence, let us make ourselves perfect, would have had associations for a Western audience from the Bible, New Testament, Matthew 5:48, from the Sermon on the Mount, I guess. Be ye therefore perfect, even as your Father which is in heaven is perfect. And so he brings it back, this idea of the means. He brings it at the end, he brings back this idea of let us perfect the means, and the end will take care of itself. If we want the end to be a good and pure world, then our lives have to be good and pure. If we want to, it is an effect, and we are the means. And of course, that we don't want to get into that right now. Swamiji says in other places, this world is like the dog's curly tail. You can't make it perfect. If it were perfect, it would not be the world. But still, at the same time, he yearned to lift people up, to help bring the suffering masses out of misery, out of suffering. And he worked for that. And that's why our ideal is this twin ideal of Atmano Mokshartham Jagadhitaya, for our own illumination, our own liberation, and for the welfare of all, for the welfare of every being. Any comments, questions, objections? Anybody watching online?
Yes.
Any messages?
37.
Well, welcome to the people who are also listening online.
A lot of comments, but not really.
No questions. Okay. All right. They'll come now, just as we're ready to close. It's okay. Well, this was the talk, Work and Its Secret, or otherwise titled, What Brings Success? Delivered on Thursday, 4th January 1900 at 10 a.m. Must have gone on for at least an hour. And it's probably not a complete transcription because, but we don't know, but it's a lot of inspiring teaching here. And thank you for coming and giving me the opportunity to go through it with you. Shall we take a moment of silence? Maybe a couple minutes? Om Asato Ma Sadgamaya Tamaso Ma Jyotirgamaya Mrityorma Mritangamaya Aviravirma Edhi Rudrayapte Dakshinam Mukham Tena mam pahi nityam. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. From the unreal, lead us to the real. From darkness, lead us unto light. From death, lead us to immortality. Reach us through and through ourself, and evermore protect us from ignorance by thy sweet, compassionate face. Om, peace, peace, peace. These Thursday classes are rotating subjects. Swami Medhananda is doing the Raja Yoga, Patanjali Yoga Sutras. Swami Sumanasananda is doing Narada Bhakti Sutras. And I was doing Karma Yoga up till now, and I was thinking next to take up the hymns of Swami Vivekananda. He wrote several hymns on Sri Ramakrishna. We sing some of them every night. One of them we sing every night, Om Hring Ritang, and also Khandana Bhava Bandhana, and there's another one. So I was thinking of going through those. It's quite nice. All right, thank you, Jai Ma.